Alright, so now we're ready to balance our Glidecam. So today I'll be demonstrating using a Glidecam HD 2000 and an EOS 70D with the 24-105 lens. Now before we start putting on our camera onto the Glidecam and start balancing, I recommend taking all your counterweights and evenly distribute them onto both sides of your Glidecam. So why so? By doing this, basically, you will make the base of your Glidecam a lot heavier. So when you're balancing it, you prevent the top from being too heavy and making the entire thing tip over. So to make life easier later on, I also recommend to just secure one counterweight onto the weight slots and then just put the remaining counterweights onto the first one without securing them. So by doing so, you can remove and add weights easily before making your final decision and then locking them down. Because having to unscrew those two knobs all the way out, putting the counterweights in and then screwing them back in is quite annoying. So with that out of the way, we have the camera. Now, for those of you who use cameras with straps, now I recommend if you're using the camera for Glidecam, take the strap off because the strap can really cause your balance to fluctuate and it can mess around with your balance, and sometimes it gets in the way while you're operating the Glidecam. So I recommend strap off, but if you do a lot of other work like photography and you absolutely have to use the strap and you don't really want to keep taking the strap off just for Glidecam, and when you're done Glidecamming you want to put the strap on again, it's really troublesome to take the strap off and back on repeatedly. So if you're going to do that, the best method I figured to get around that is, now you take your strap, fold it in half like so, fold it in half again, so you have it like so, and then you tuck the strap into that little space beneath your lens. So like so, you minimize the strap getting in the way and, well, you get to use the Glidecam. But still, this won't beat having the strap completely off. So if you want maximum stability with your Glidecam, take the strap off. So for this guide, we will be taking the strap off. And done. Alright, so now we can get to balancing the Glidecam. So basically, balancing a Glidecam is split into 4 simple steps. Well, not exactly simple. Basically, why? Because one, you need a lot of patience to do this, and second, you need pretty strong arms to do this because this thing ain't light. So balancing generally takes quite a lot of time, and holding the Glidecam like this for a prolonged period can really kill your arm. So keep that in mind. Alright, so step 1, you want to check your parallel axis. That's the balance of the Glidecam parallel to you. So that's this axis over here. Now as you can see, my parallel axis is quite perfect right now. So it might not always be perfect, it might be slightly off, but slightly off is okay. But you do need to get worried if your parallel axis is very off by maybe more than 30 degrees or maybe even 45 degrees. I think over 30 degrees is already pretty unacceptable. So if your parallel axis is very off, that means your quick release plate that's mounted on the top plate is mounted in the wrong column. So if the entire thing goes this way, now that means it's too heavy towards the left, so you want to remove your quick release plate and position it one slot towards the right and try again and see if this works. So you just do it the other way around. If it goes too much towards this side, you just take the quick release plate, which is biased towards the right side, and move it towards the left side by 1 or 2 slots. So get until you get sort of a straight axis. So basically, balancing your Glidecam is to get your Glidecam nice and straight on the parallel axis and the adjacent axis. So when it's perfectly straight, that means it's perfectly balanced. Alright, now we want to perfectly straighten out the parallel axis. So what we can do now here is to use the fine-tuning knobs, and to unlock the fine-tuning knob, we need to loosen these 4 knobs on the bottom that loosen up the plate so we can use the fine-tuning knob. Now if you turn the fine-tuning knob clockwise, it would move the top plate slightly towards the right, so it would tip it towards this side. And if you turn it anti-clockwise, it will move it to the left, hence tipping it slightly towards this side. So now you can see my Glidecam is tipping slightly towards that side. So I would turn it anti-clockwise until it straightens out. Alright, now that looks pretty straight to me. Now we can move on. Now step 2 is to balance the adjacent axis. That is, if the Glidecam is straight, this way. So if it's like this, it's too front heavy. So if it's like this, it's too back heavy. So basically, you want it to get straight. Alright, so for example, my case now, if I just hold it like so with one hand and I don't touch it with the other hand, you can see the Glidecam leans towards the back. That means the back is far too heavy. So what I can do is either add some weight to the front or take away some weight from the back. So what I'm going to do now is take away one piece of counterweight from the back. Alright, as you can see, my kit tipped over. That means the base is not heavy enough. So taking away one weight from the back wasn't the solution. So I'm gonna put that weight back, and instead of taking away one weight from the back, I'm gonna add one weight to the front. Alright, so as you can see, it's pretty nice now. Now generally I would recommend actually taking away weights if you listen to my advice and put all the weights onto the base. Now what happened just now was that I didn't have all my weights on. I only used 6 weights out of the 12 weights. So that was to demonstrate what could happen when the camera tips upside down. So right now, it's pretty nicely balanced, but you can see it's still leaning a bit towards the front. Alright, so that means that we need to do some fine tuning because we can't really alter the weights now, because if I take one weight away from the front to counteract that leaning towards the front, it will lean very much towards the back. So I will put that weight back on, and I would loosen these 4 knobs on the side that unlock the fine tuning. So just loosen them, they don't have to come out, just have them loose. And now you can turn the knob on the back of your Glidecam. Alright, now if I turn the knob anti-clockwise, it moves this top plate slightly towards the back. So it would tip it towards the back, and if I turn it clockwise, it will move it further towards the front, so tipping it slightly towards the front. So now I want it to tip it back. So I would turn it anti-clockwise, and you can see it's starting to straight out due to the fine-tuning mechanism. Alright, now here it is. Alright, so after making sure both the parallel and horizontal axes are straight, we can now calibrate the drop time. Now what is the drop time? Now the drop time is basically the time it takes for your Glidecam, when it's turned 90 degrees like so, to fall into place 90 degrees like so. So right now, my drop time is about 1/2 of a second. So the shorter your drop time, that means the heavier your base is. Now the optimum drop time is anywhere between 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds. Now it varies from person to person. Some people like to have their drop time nice and long, that means the base isn't that heavy, and some people like to have the drop time very fast, that means the base is slightly more heavy. Now for me, I like a faster drop time because I find a heavier base makes the entire thing more stable. Alright, but still, now my drop time is too fast. I want to reduce that drop time, that means reducing the weight on my base. So I will remove one counterweight from each side. Alright, so now it turns out my base is too light because my Glidecam is starting to turn completely over. So now we can use the shaft to make up for that. So basically, when you extend the shaft, it has the same effect as increasing the weight on the base of your Glidecam without adding weight. So right now, it's no longer top heavy, it's holding up quite well. Let's test the drop time. 1/1000, okay, about 1.2 seconds. So that was slightly too fast, so I want to lengthen it a little by retracting the base slightly. Now using the length of the shaft to adjust your balance is much more fine-tuned than using the counterweights because it allows you a much higher degree of control over the weight distribution. Alright, so now let's test it again. 1000 to 1000. Alright, that was about 2 seconds, just under 2 seconds, so just the way I like it. So now we are actually ready to go. The Glidecam is ready to run, but we can stop here or we can go to step 4. Now step 4 will enhance your Glidecam experience because it is to optimize the height to weight ratio. Now depending on your configuration, you can either choose to have a shorter shaft but heavier base, or a longer shaft but less counterweights. Now for me, I like to use a long shaft with less counterweights because it means less overall weight of the entire setup. So when you're holding the Glidecam for long periods of time, that really comes a very long way. Alright, so now for example, to balance this kit, I need a length of so with 3 counterweights on each side. Now of course this is just an example, but well, it's balanced and it's usable. However, it's very heavy. So to optimize the height to weight ratio, that means to be able to balance your kit with as less weight as possible. So now I've got 3 weights on each side, so now I'm gonna reduce it to just 2 weights on each side. So I'm gonna take away 1 weight from each side. Now, my top is slightly too heavy. Alright, so what I'm gonna do now is, to make up for it, I will adjust the balance by lengthening the shaft just by a little. So now it's pretty nicely balanced. Now this is pretty much as long as the shaft can go. So if I remove more weights, I couldn't extend the shaft even longer and the top will get too heavy. So this, I would say, is the optimum configuration for my setup.